Welcome to the Rotary Club of Jonesboro, 5-time reigning Club of the Year. Our inspirational moment. The purpose of human life is to serve and to show compassion and the will to help others. Albert Schweitzer. Okay, our program introduction will be by John Miles.
Yeah, you guys remind me of my church. Hey, it's my pleasure to introduce Natalie Neal. She's Program Service Manager at our Family Crisis Center. She manages the emergency shelter operations and oversees direct services to victims and survivors of domestic and sexual violence. Additionally, she serves as the team coordinator for the Craighead County COSAR, which stands for Council of Sexual Assault Response, bringing together invested community members and service providers in a collaborative effort to combat domestic violence and sexual violence, human trafficking, and stalking in our community. Natalie's originally from Texas. She earned her bachelor's degree in finance and risk management at the University of Minnesota in Minneapolis, St. Paul. She is currently working on a master's degree in public administration at A-State. Prior to finding a home at the Family Crisis Center in Jonesboro, Natalie spent 3 years volunteering and working on a mission for a mission organization based out of Atlanta, Georgia. I have to say on a personal basis that Natalie's family, the Hopes and the Pennies are part of my church. And when Natalie moved here, she's been coming, well, until COVID, she's been coming to church as well. So it's a great honor for me. The Women's Crisis Center, our church helped start it. The offices were in our church when it got started, and a lot of our members volunteer at the secondhand shop. And we always, every year in October, Domestic Violence Month, we take up an offering for the Women's Crisis Center. So it's something we really believe in. And Natalie, thank you so much for sharing with us.
So I just want to start by saying thank you so much for having me, for allowing the Family Crisis Center to be able to come in and speak to all of y'all. Kind of as John, alluded to and said, we have received so much support from the Jonesboro community, businesses. I mean, it's just, we couldn't do it without the help of our entire community. So for anyone who doesn't know, Family Crisis Center has been around for more than 3 decades now here in Jonesboro. We have a domestic violence as well as a sexual assault program. So the sexual assault program is newer. We just opened up the Rape Crisis Center in 2017, I want to say, but it's very unique in that there are only 3 rape crisis centers in the entire state of Arkansas, which we just have a private standalone facility where we can provide forensic exams. So rape kits is the way a lot of people know those. But we can provide those to adults who are in need of that, as opposed to having to go to the emergency room where it can just be really re-traumatizing to be in that kind of environment. So yeah, and then we have our emergency shelter, which is the thing that individuals ask about a lot, legal advocacy services, so helping individuals protect themselves and their children from abusive partners. And then here more recently, we've been able to add a full-time on-staff therapist, so someone who it's no insurance, everything that we do is completely free, completely confidential. And so being able to provide therapy services to individuals who are experiencing very specific traumas and victimizations. So that's been a wonderful addition. And I do also just want to say, if there are any questions, I love questions. I want to know what people want to know about. Otherwise, I'll just keep talking. But yeah, so a little bit just kind of about me and I guess how the getting around to the Family Crisis Center. Yes, my background is in finance. I worked for a risk management brokerage firm for 3 years out of college. Decided, no disrespect, but just decided that I wanted my life's work to maybe have a little bit more of a direct impact in the lives of individuals who are just members of very vulnerable populations. And so Vicki Nelms now, because she got remarried. Our executive director, Vicki Nelms, she took a chance on me. I had just come back from doing missions work. That's what I left the brokerage firm to pursue, was just being able to get out and kind of meet the needs of the individuals that needed it most. And so came back, moved to Jonesboro, had family roots here. I've not seen my Aunt Leslie so excited for something because all of her kids had flown the coop, and then here she was, taking in basically her sister's kid. But Vicki took a chance on me in bringing me into the Family Crisis Center and working with victims, survivors of domestic violence and sexual violence was never the plan per se, but the unfortunate reality is, we like to say that we're going to try to work ourselves out of a job. That's always the end goal. The unfortunate reality is just that it is a very rampant problem in this community in the northeastern Arkansas region. So we serve 7 counties here in Northeast Arkansas. So we're the only domestic violence program between here and the Boot Heel. And so, just being able to provide services to individuals, through COVID, that was a very difficult time, and a time where there's already a lot of things that people can't anticipate that are going on, still ensuring that we were able to provide services, still being able to meet the needs of the individuals who need it most. But we offer a 24-hour crisis hotline where we can provide safety planning. So individuals who, I would say, anywhere on the spectrum from, hi, someone gave me this phone number and I'm not sure why, right? And that maybe they are experiencing some abusive, tactics by a partner, and they're not even necessarily sure that they want to identify that way yet, right? They're not at the point where they might be able to say that they're being abused. So talking to those individuals all the way up to the ones who are prepared to leave. And so helping them create that safety plan, helping kind of build a net around them, filling in whatever gaps may exist. So everything from toiletries, people sometimes ask us, like, what can we do to support the Family Crisis Center? Of course, we will always take your money. That's a given. We have to pay to keep the lights on, keep the water running, pay for the mortgage. But beyond that, everything that you could conceivably think of that you would need to run a home is what I require in order to ensure that our clients, our residents, these individuals who have fled from violent relationships, that they don't have to worry about anything besides the safety and the health and the well-being of themselves and their children. So, and we just, everything that you can think of, we do that. So case management. Oh, do you have a question? Sure. So the question is, knowing that our shelter is in a confidential, undisclosed location, how can someone access us in an immediate need if they need to? The fastest and easiest way to get that process started is to pick up the phone and call our hotline. It is answered 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, because I like to pull Christmas shifts. So, but giving us a call on the hotline, we're going to assess kind of what's going on, what the most immediate needs are. So if that's shelter, if that's, reporting to law enforcement with, the individual's permission, all those kind of things. Otherwise, we meet a lot of individuals at our administrative office location, which is just off of kind of the downtown Jonesboro area. And that's kind of where we get those things started. So any of our servicing, whether it's therapy, meeting to fill out an order of protection to go turn into the circuit clerk's office, or talking about shelter intake, it's all kind of going from there. So, yep, good question. Yes, sir.
All right. This is Will Branch. My question would be kind of, what is the process when someone comes to you? Where does it start? What do they go through? And kind of where do they go from there?
Sure. So kind of like I briefly mentioned, for a lot of individuals, they may first get our phone number from a police officer who's responding to a domestic disturbance. So at some point in time, they're either going to be given our number, they may not even know who we are or what we do, right? They're just picking up the phone and calling somebody. Or they might Google us. But bottom line, they just might acknowledge that there is something going on in a relationship, an intimate partner relationship in their life that they don't even know what the questions are yet. They don't even know what's possible. I mean, I visit a lot of, again, 7 counties. I go visit a lot of places. We've been here 30 years. People still don't know that we exist, you know? And so I'll finish that question. So they would come talk. I mean, we assess on the crisis hotline. We're going to ask to meet with them in person. That's we got safety protocols and, procedures that we need to follow. Make sure that the person that we're talking to, is the person that's in need of help. Unfortunately, abusive individuals, they're very, very crafty and they're very manipulative, and they'll take some chances. So we want to make sure that that's the person who needs help. But if it's like a shelter intake, right, someone who's needing a safe place to come stay, police can bring people straight in. We conduct intakes out of the hospital, right? Individuals who've been physically assaulted, and we're bringing them into shelter. We're letting them adjust, right? For some individuals, this is the first time that they might have had the opportunity to make choices for themselves in a very long time. And so our entire model is about empowerment, right? I'm not the expert in your situation. You are. I'm not here to tell you what you have to do, how you have to do it, what you should do. We're going to work together to try to figure out what is the best way for you to reach stability and independence, just because there is this very cyclical nature about domestic violence, right? We talk about people leaving, coming back, leaving, coming back, leaving, going back 7 to 10 times until someone leaves for the last time. Or the unfortunate, we track homicide rates as a, product of domestic violence here. And I think we're all aware, we can see in the news when things like that happen. So does that answer your question? Okay, wonderful.
Norm Stafford, could you tell me how many people do you have? Do you have people in each county? And what kind of services or what kind of counseling and training do these people have?
Okay. So as far as if you're meaning our offices or office location, we are completely based out of Jonesboro. We do outreach services to each county. So going and talking at schools, going and talking to law enforcement, training, all of that kind of stuff. But otherwise, a lot of the individuals, no matter what county they're coming from, and don't get me wrong, we get a lot of volume outside of our official service counties. A lot of things coming in from Dunklin County, a lot of things coming in from Shelby. So we're not, if you don't fit in our service area, it's not like we're going to turn you away. But I would say, as far as the services that we're serving or that we're providing based on what county people are coming out of, heavy Craighead County, a lot of stuff coming out of Poinsett, Greene County. I think a lot of that's just based on geography. And then I think there was a second part to your question. Oh, as far as our staff size? Okay. In total, we just went through we're a government, funded as well as charitable contribution funded agency. So we're dependent upon what the state and how some of that goes. So we recently experienced a couple of cuts because of limitations in funding, restrictions in some funding that happened at the federal level this year. But 10 to 12 is about the staff that we're employing from top to bottom. A large majority of that goes to covering that shelter and that hotline 24/7. So does that answer? Okay.
My name is Dana Kennedy, and you've sort of addressed it, but do people usually come to you the first time they have an abusive incident, or have they usually experienced a pattern and maybe you could be one of the last stops?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. No, I would say frequently. Of course, there are the outliers where the first time something happens, they're calling the police. The first time it happens, the police, that they're calling us. But no, a large majority of individuals, and I try anytime that we're talking about how we run our operations, how we try and work with people, put yourself in the position of an individual who, I try to actually do this where if it were me what are all of the things that I would conceivably try and do before resorting to what a lot of people would imagine to be kind of a last resort, right? It's hard enough talking to our friends and family about the things that happen in our own homes, behind closed doors. That's why domestic violence is a really difficult thing for people to talk about. We're just now getting to a place where I think it can be more freely acknowledged or, acceptable for people to have these kind of conversations. So, no, I mean, a lot of times they're not going to want to tell a total stranger. And so they're going to couch surf, to friends' houses. They're going to go through family members. And the unfortunate reality of what we see is that a lot of these individuals, by the time that they reach out to us, they have already wore through many, many welcomes of their family members. So the support system, has really decayed over time as a product of this cyclical nature, the going back and, leaving and going back, leaving and going back. So a lot of times by the time, and, violence, physical violence against a person, that is a train that only moves forward, right? First time that we, push someone, it's going to be easier to do next time because we got away with it. They didn't say anything. You threatened to take their kids from them. You threatened to hurt the dog. You threatened to, take the car. You call up to their job 15 times a day because you're, wanting to, it's the control mechanism is so incredibly high there. We have clients who have lost their jobs. Nothing wrong with their performance. The employment is just concerned about something happening, because of the liability they're taking on and having something possibly happen. And so all the while, these individuals are being isolated, from friends, from family, employment, transportation, right? I never really realized until I moved to maybe a more rural area how difficult I take for granted the fact that I have a car, I can afford it. I can keep the insurance and pay for the gas. And a lot of these individuals can't. And so sometimes, that divide and county line is enough to, unfortunately, it's enough to be a barrier to an individual being able to get help that they so desperately want and are asking for.
Imelda Williams here. I'm a little bit confused. I go to a place called the Women's Crisis Center. Is this the same program as what I see up on the board? It says NEA Family Crisis Center.
Yeah. Okay. So yes. And I'm not sure if you go up and Google the location of the Family Crisis Center, you will get probably 15 different addresses. I know they used to be on Cobb. There's stuff on Washington, The official address, while being undisclosed, we are located here in Jonesboro, but yes, it was known as the Women's Crisis Center. I want to say about a decade ago, maybe a couple of years more, but about 10 years ago, they decided to change the name to Family Crisis Center to just encompass that, yes, we talk about gender-based violence, but it is very possible and happens where a female can offend on a male. It also just kind of acknowledges men offending on men, women offending on men, women. So it's more inclusive of trying to ensure that people understand that we are not here to say women victim, male perpetrator, though there is statistical evidence, but does that answer that question? Okay.
Natalie, why do you think, Gary Clark, why do you think or say that it's really focused in Northeast Arkansas? Is this not more of a national problem, or do we have a real problem here that's kind of peculiar to our area?
No, so it's definitely absolutely a national problem. Think about Gabby Petito, right? Got a lot of phone calls, a lot of media interest, wanting some opinions on the Gabby Petito case. Because they look so happy. You never know from their Instagram that, which we'll never officially know, I guess, but, that it makes national headlines. No, this is a problem everywhere. And there are definitely populations of individuals who receive less media coverage, and rural areas do kind of tend to be one of those kind of things. Excuse me. So I would say more than anything else, I think what makes this region. So no, we belong to a coalition. There are 31 or 32 domestic violence programs in the state of Arkansas, who are all held to the same standards, best practices, those kind of things. So we are spread across the state, but I think what makes our region a little bit unique is just how many barriers there can be that may not exist in more urbanized or more kind of commercialized areas. And so, like I said, I can get a phone call from someone who's just down in Harrisburg, but without the ability to safely remove that person from the house, physically remove them, and getting them to us. There's just a lot of barriers in dealing with a more rural region. So does that answer your question? Okay.
Brock Woodridge. Can you share any numbers, like how many women, whatever, been served in a month, recently, a year, whatever?
Sure. So I just ran, so let's see, I want to say on average, year over year, we're seeing somewhere between 12 to 1,500 hotline phone calls a year. As far as service numbers specific to certain services, so I would say in our shelter, including dependents, we're going to usually hit somewhere in like the 75 person. And so those households can be everything from a single, individual. The largest family sizes I've seen are families of 6, and try to find housing for a family of 6 on the fly. That's not an easy ask. But I want to say our legal advocacy services, they're helping 120 to 150 individuals file, criminal affidavits to press charges against their abusers, filing for orders of protection, those kind of things. We're attending court on those. So overall, it's a little difficult to put like a number on it, but I can tell you right now, I have an absolutely full shelter. I've had a full shelter for the last 6 weeks. I have turned away more than 30 households in the last 6 weeks. And I'm to understand that is a similar issue in other places. We see generally an uptick around summertime. Okay. Reason being, moms who have school-age children don't want to disrupt their kids' school. So they're just going to stick it out, right? We're going to safety plan, and we're going to try to see if we can make it safe, and they want to leave, when kids hit summer. I don't know. To sit back and think about that, to think about, that what you're trying to do is going to be disruptive. So it might be easier to get hit for a little while longer. It's unreal. But yes, does that answer your question? Yeah. So bigger than we think, basically, much bigger than we think. Good questions.
Marilyn Hummelstein, is there an average length of stay?
Ooh, that's an excellent question. So the way that our policies are written is that no individual will be turned out after a specific set amount of time, right? Because, if we're starting from the ground up, if we got to get kids in school, find daycare options, we got to get a job, save money, go and pay a security deposit and first month's rent, right? Take some time. I would say on average for a single individual, we might be looking, 2 to 3 months on average, right? It takes time to save money. When we start adding children, I would say if I was going to really try to throw average in there, it's about an extra month a child, just because of the cost of daycare. Daycare's hard. And we try our best to, with the, best stewardship of what public assistance programs are available, right? Try to get people signed up on things that are beneficial. Unfortunately, some of the programs, so like the T program, which is a part of the TANF program, you have to have tried to have gotten child support. Okay. For an individual who's fled from an abusive relationship, do you think that they're trying to go to that person to secure child support to receive those benefits? Absolutely not. So there are some barriers that exist, but we do try best we can. But I would say on average, we get some people who stay for a night or two until their family can purchase them a bus ticket to get them out of state, somewhere safe. And then for other individuals, 6 months, I mean, is some of the longer term stays that I've seen, but those usually involved 4 to 5 kids, households.
Any other questions?
If I could just add, they did mention, so like second home shop, if you are legitimately interested in partnering with us, that second home shop is a wonderful, wonderful place. It is Sherry Cawthorn's baby. So we need volunteers. We love your donations. Our clients shop there for free on vouchers. And so when they come to us, sometimes with just the clothes on their back, we're getting them completely outfitted. And so I just always like to mention that because it is, our little arm in a place that it's hard to get opportunities to work directly with victims, obviously, given the work that we do and the population we're working with. So I like to tell people about opportunities that are impactful and do make a difference for our agency. So thank you so much for having me.
Natalie, thank you for being with us today, and thank you for the very important work that your agency and you do personally. Please come back and see you next week.